This happened back in March. I met this guy on a date site called Woo Plus, and let's just call him Jay for the rest of the story. Anyway, we chatted a while on the site and exchanged numbers and chatted for about a week or two until he asked me out even before we met up. He just gave a creepy vibe and was asking really weird and sexual questions, but I'm the type of person who gives people a chance. Anyway, the day of date came in. From the moment we met at the Starbucks, it went downhill from there. He was very creepy and trying to touch me or hold my hand, asking me strange questions, and was just making me feel uncomfortable and saying how he was going to take me on vacation and that we're going to have a blast. In my mind, I was like, this dude has lost his marbles. I kept looking down on my phone to see if my cousin was on her way. She was my lift home, but there was no text anyways. Then at a point he was like, why don't we go sit in my car? I was looking at him like, WTF is wrong with this guy? So I responded, I don't think so. Thankfully my cousin texted me she was outside, so I told him, and he was like, oh, I cleaned out my car and was going to give you a lift home. I didn't say anything to him. On our way out, we just stood there and he tried coming closer to me, and I asked him, what are you doing? And he was like, I want to kiss you. And I was like, no, that okay, because I don't even know you. I said bye to him and went to get in my cousin's car, and her son was in the back seat. He's 11 years old. He goes to his car and my cousin takes off. Next thing you know, my cousin turns around and say he was following your car. I started to panic. For a moment my cousin kept going down the street. I told her, turn into a gas station and see he keeps following us in here or keeps going straight. Thankfully he kept going straight. Anyway, everything was okay after, and I never went out with him again. So creepy date guy, let's not meet again. My wife passed away after many years battling an awful degenerative disease. We were married 13 years, and after several months of not being able to find my footing, I made the decision to move out of state and start a few chapters to force myself into beginning a new life. I was immediately validated by getting my first job in over 8 years. Things slowly began to start moving forward, and after prodding from my friends, I signed up for a mobile dating app. I met a couple of people that I really didn't have a lot of chemistry with. The first date I went on was cordial, without any consequence. She wound up asking me to fix a laptop she had. The second person I met called me, and we decided to meet for Chinese food. Since I didn't have a car, I walked the 5 or 6 blocks, but not before it started to rain. She had already sat at a table and was waiting for me to arrive. We exchanged pleasantries, and soon it's all about her divorce and why she lost her kids and all the legal proceedings of her current cases. Okay. And then she would pause, clasp my hands on the table, turn her head, lean in a bit and say, but that's nothing compared to what you went through. Tell me about your dead wife. Like clockwork, she would ramble on about the craziest stuff, about how they're all trying to get her, then stop her crazy babbling and ask about my details and how bad it felt and my poor wife's decline in condition. I had only put in my profile that I was a widower, nothing else. It was at this point that I got seriously weirded out. Deep in my gut, fully weirded out. I couldn't figure out if she was trying to mimic what she thought a sensitive person would be like, or was there a possibility that she wanted to know those painful, graphic details for other perverted reasons. I made short work of the entree and paid the entire check. She called my phone a few times, and I made several excuses why I was unable to meet again. I got a couple of calls from block numbers that didn't say anything, but they stopped after a month or two. I'm blessed and remarried, but I'm so grateful I noped the EFF right out of there and never messed with this lady again. So about 7 years ago, I had an online date who, after I told him a second date wouldn't be happening, decided to show up at my place of work. Needless to say, After that, I was extremely hesitant to dive back into the pool of online dating. In fact, since then I can count on one hand the number of men I've dated from online, but my sister and my best friend have both met men over the last year on an app that connects through Facebook. It's used to help filter out catfishes and also tries to find mutual friends of friends that would match what you're looking for in a partner. So over the last month, I've been talking to guys here and there, but hadn't yet really found one I was ready to move beyond text with. Then this guy came along. We chatted in the app, and he was really nice and seemed safe. After almost 3 weeks of daily texting, I agreed to a date. For the first time ever, I did not stalk his social media profiles because I wanted to stop self-sabotaging. I tend to dig so deep that I know too much before the date and have already made my decision that there will be no second date. Yes, I am extremely paranoid. So I show up to the first date and it's okay. He's mostly quiet and kinda shy, but polite. I know I have a big personality and can dominate the conversation, so I decide to give him a second shot. As the week leading up to date 2 goes on, I start to get apprehensive and tell myself not to sabotage this. I realize because I didn't want to stalk his profiles, I don't know his last name. So I text him and ask. He seems hesitant to tell me. He asks me why I need to know, so I respond jokingly that I typically ask before the first date so I can know who my murderer is, but we're beyond that, and now I simply want to know who I'm dating. It takes him a while to respond, but he sends it finally and then doesn't text again for a while. I keep my promise to myself and don't social media stalk him. I tell some friends, who start to seem hesitant about me meeting him again. Date 2. I show up at the restaurant, my choice, and it's pretty empty, so there's plenty of parking right up front. I park and wait. I see another car pull in, assuming it's him. He drives past all the open spots, my car included, which he knows because he walked me to it after date 1. He parks over at the side of the building, gets out, walks past my car and texts that he saw me in the lot. It seemed a little awkward, but I ignored it. We enjoy the date and spend an hour and a half talking on and off until the restaurant closes. We discussed where in the city we live, general directions, and the fact that we've lived in those areas our entire lives. We also discussed social media, and he claims he has no social media account. This should have been a red flag, since the app takes Facebook. Although the conversation was much better, I wasn't sure that I was ready to tell him I wanted to see him again, so I figured I would go home and think about it. He walks me to my car, but walks uncomfortably close behind me. I ignore this and turn to awkwardly hug him and say my goodbye. I don't open the car until he's walked away after a bit of a pause. I leave and get out on the road to head home. There aren't many cars in that area as it's a heavily restaurant-laden area and most are closing for the night. I get up to the main road I'd need to turn down to go the direction I live, and notice the car behind me gets into the turn lane. I was not going home because I actually wanted to make a quick stop at the grocery store to grab some items I needed for dinner the following night. The light turns red, and they sit extremely far back. I look in my mirror and realize it's him. No big deal, I'm sure it was just a coincidence that he's going this way. There are other stores this way as well. I refuse to become paranoid and overthink things. So I get up to the intersection the store is at and note he's still in the far lane, so I hop into the left-hand turn lane to get to the store and notice he cuts over 2 lanes to get behind me. That seemed an odd, but maybe he didn't know where the entrance to the shopping center is. Still a really odd coincidence he'd be coming this way, especially without sending a text or something acknowledging he's behind me. I mean, we're the only cars on the road. I pull into the store and note he pulls in one row before I do. I decide to loop around the lot and pull back out onto the service road. I slowly drive back to the main road, noticing he gets out of his car and scans the parking lot. Not a casual scan like "is there a better parking spot," but a prolonged "where are you" scan. I get back out on the road and drive all the way to another out-of-the-way grocery store that I actually used to work at, knowing it's a safe place that will be on a more heavily populated end of town with some friends who will be there to make me feel safe. Needless to say, I haven't heard from him since, and I think he knows I know. It took me a while, but I found his social media. His first name was not what he told me. I dug through my texts with him until I found a screenshot he'd sent me of an Instagram page, which listed mutual followers. Another red flag. I should have remembered he obviously had an Instagram. I start digging through the accounts listed until I find one that's not private and find his profile. This leads to the ability to reverse Google images until I find his Facebook, which has a different first name and a city that is nowhere near where he claimed he lived. Time to delete my dating profile again.